Hi all, I have to apologize in advance. I've never made a YouTube video before, and this is pretty lengthy and confusing. So leave your comments and I will try and do much better on the next video. Thanks in advance.
Hello everybody. I'm about to tell you a complicated story that has affected all of us in Big River, whether you know about it or not, so bear with me. In early 22, I was looking up my family's land on Service New Brunswick's map viewer to see how far back our property line went, circled here in green.
Looking at our property, I noticed a border sectioning off our riverfront from the rest of the property, circled there on the right in red. I called Dad and asked him what it was about. He said he wasn't sure, but that he'd gone down to the courthouse, I guess years before, to have it straightened out. The lady knew exactly what he was inquiring about, as our neighbor and cousin, another good to the south, had just been in asking about the same thing. I think Dad was given the impression that it would be straightened out, but he sent me a tax receipt from years later that had New Brunswick Power's name on it with a new PID. The PID 2081-1014 had our original PID 2033-4025 listed as parent. Their document says their information was created in 2007, type 1100, which is a transfer of deed. The document is 2406-1526, which is a transfer of deed from Smurfitstone to New Brunswick Power. I'll show you more on that document shortly. I'll put this information here as it's relevant to that parent-infant designation thing I just mentioned, but it didn't come about until a little later on when I got a hold of Service New Brunswick's Survey and Title Examiner. If you need to look closer at the documents I'm presenting, just pause, or if your device can zoom in, as there's just so much information I can't spend too much time on each thing. So the Survey and Title Examiner would confirm that yes, it was transferred from deed 74306 based on that document I mentioned, 2406-1526, as he states here in his email. When I told him that 74306 was my father's and it was transferred out of his name 9 days before that document, 2406-1526, was created, he stopped communicating with me. Notice the date of his email. It's April 5th, 2022. He pulled the parent-infant designation, just like he said he would in the email, off Service New Brunswick's website that same day, circled here in green. Notice how the supposed meanderings of the riverfront circles around our old quarry pool so they can take out more of the strip of riverfront? More on that strip later. It has nothing to do with the Crown like the rumors they're putting out there. What they are actually doing, contrary to the rumors, is connecting the riverfronts to old 1800s deeds that mention reserved fishing privileges. I don't think they want people to know that, though, as the explanation is not as plausible as if it were to be taken by the Crown. And also, Service New Brunswick's border bumps out just barely around our camp, the tiny rectangle, when the water line actually bumps the other way, which would cut into our camp. Pretty convenient or creative borderline drawing. By who? No one knows, because the surveyor that's connected to it adamantly denies having anything to do with our riverfront. More on that later. So from the back of their border to the front of our riverbed, they have taken off over 500 feet of our riverfront property. On the property north of us, in their meanderings, it runs directly opposite of the river flow. Sorry, I have a red line through it. But how's that even possible? More on that property in a later video. For some context on the property and how long our family's been ingrained in the community of Big River, some of our quarry stone, along with the Conleys, went to build the courthouse in 1900, bottom left, and Assumption Academy, top right. We have plenty of pictures during the school's construction, with my grandfather being one of the workers. The top left picture is a goods quarry in 1944. That rock face is all covered in moss now. I took some pictures last year, 2023, that I'll show. Bottom right are two goods and a neighbor, a black. Often the community of the big Nipisiguit River people, they worked alongside each other on some projects like the McDonald Bridge in Halifax. That got its stone from Conley's quarry. We have lots of pictures from that time in history as well. Some of our quarry stone is part of many bridges or fences in the community, like the fence around the old St. George's Anglican graveyard in town, where many of my ancestors and relatives are buried. This is Dad last year walking to where the old quarry was. The second picture, he's standing looking out in the same direction as the men in the picture below.
This is me sitting on an old felled white pine tree from decades ago. There's a whole story behind this tree, but unless you're of the land, you wouldn't know anything about it. All of us growing up on the river, or the reserve, or the people who lived elsewhere but did the logging, or were the camp cooks, all have our treasure trove of special places along the river. Places and stories that mean nothing to Service New Brunswick or New Brunswick Power or the like. In the photo on the right, I found the perfect tiniest mushroom in front of the camp, so I took a picture. In both of these pictures, according to Service New Brunswick's borderline, me and Dad are not even on our own property. On our tax receipt, it shows our riverfront as PID 2081-1014 and as infant to our PID ending in 4025. Our document info, as I underlined, says 1976, Book 489, number 74306, page 338, which is the deed already discussed to my dad for my grandmother as my grandfather's passed. In Dad's document 74306, the border is described as being, quote, bounded on the east by Nipissaquit River, unquote. The plan number associated to our property with this infant designation is 2400-7180, clearly shown on our tax receipt. This is the survey East Coast Surveys did June 19, 2007. Service New Brunswick used that survey to subdivide our property, then 9 days later, June 28, 2007, transferred it from my father to New Brunswick Power using that document 2406-1526, the Smurfit Stone to New Brunswick Power document. These two documents, the survey and New Brunswick Power's deed transfer, will come up very often in the information I'm going to share with you. I spoke with East Coast Survey and he is adamant his survey only pertains to the power line corridor, which he reiterated a couple of times in different emails, one shown here. Yet there it is on our tax receipts regarding the 10.7 hectares to the river. This survey number is also included in the data on Service New Brunswick's website as it pertains to this lot. I scrubbed out some of the email as there's so much information that I'm trying to keep it as simple as possible and help people focus on what I'm discussing at the moment. If anyone has authentic reason to want to see any of my documents in full, please reach out. Or if you're able, look them up for yourself to corroborate what I'm saying. This is the document mentioned previously that they are claiming proves that our property belongs to New Brunswick Power, dated 9 days after the survey document that transferred our lands out of our names. This is also the document that the website cites as the authority to do the survey, yet the survey was completed on the 19th of June in 2007, and this document didn't exist until the 28th of June in 2007. The amount of parcels surveyed under that one survey number range in the hundreds, so who knows how long they'd been working on it before it got recorded. Months, maybe years? This is one of the pages of the survey that pertains to our property. I mentioned to the surveyor that he had been trespassing on our property to do the survey. When he claimed it belonged to Smurfit, I pointed out that it was in my father's name at that point, and how can he go on the property just because he was hired by somebody, without doing any due diligence? How does he know that the property wasn't owned by somebody else? He said it was up to the lawyers to find out, so I asked him if I'd wanted to do a survey in Yahall, I just needed to hire him? I own no property in Yahall, by the way, but he had no answer for that. This is what New Brunswick Power's property specialist sent me, after a very long back and forth and having to finally report them to the Better Business Bureau just to get a response. This is what the actual physical document in the $1 billion Smurfit Stone contract transfer to New Brunswick Power The infamous document 2406-1526 mentioned earlier. It's excerpts of deeds in the registry from the 1800s that mention fishing privileges. Not a single mention regarding the Crown. Interestingly enough, the words "as reserved by the Crown" are inserted within those wordings on Service New Brunswick's website's data. No copies of the deeds that this document claims to refer to are included. What you are looking at is literally the piece of paper that they are claiming gave them the authority to not only take our property out of our name, but the reason they didn't have to tell us they were doing it. I have to tell you, early on when I thought this could be legit, I was expecting them to show me some official parchment certificates bonded by the Crown or at least some notarized papers. When I saw this wording in a modern contract, I realized something was very wrong. Now, before I go down any more rabbit holes, I've deleted so much information already. I'll try and be as basic as possible. It's extremely difficult because there is just so much relevant information that I want everyone to be aware of. But I'll show the chain of title starting from the Crown for our property, Lot 15, through my family acquiring it in 1879 up to now. Then I'll go back and lay out some of the fake deeds that Service New Brunswick, New Brunswick Power, the Registrar General, and a handful of Service New Brunswick lawyers are citing as information that came to light as their claim as to why they feel we never owned the land in the first place.